friends! I got something in the mail today that I wanted to open up with you. Let's see what it is. Oh wow, look at this! It's an invitation to a picnic! And it looks like Mrs. Jumbo the elephant is going to put the picnic on. How fun! She says, please bring your very best refreshments. That's a treat. And wear your finest hat. Well, all right then. So while you go get your hat, I'm going to read you the story of Mrs. Jumbo at her picnic. Now the hat I'm going to wear is a very special hat. This hat is my kid's second great grandma's hat. She loved to wear hats and her name was Alita. She was so amazing. She could do anything she put her mind to. And she was strong. She even got hit by lightning 2 times. And she was totally fine. Can you even believe that? So I'm going to wear her hat today. Now let's read the story. It's called The Animals Picnic by Ernest Nister, and it's well over 100 years old. Sitting at home by the cozy fireside one night, Mrs. Jumbo said to her husband, I think, dear, it would be really a great treat to see all of our old friends again. I've been thinking it over lately, and I've decided we will hold a big picnic. At this notion, the children howled with pleasure. I love picnics, our friends too! But their father looked up from his paper and growled, we cannot afford it. The plan is absurd. I've never heard of such extravagance. But of course, in the end, as you might have guessed, Mrs. Jumbo somehow persuaded him to say, oh, all right. The first thing to do was to send out the invitations. While this was being done, Mr. Jumbo stood on the hearthrug looking very sulky and not offering to help at all. The others made out a list, and then Mrs. J wrote a note to each animal in her very best handwriting. The 2 children tried to help, but they got so excited that they upset the ink. Oh, their mother cried, if you cannot behave yourselves, you shall not come to the picnic at all. This gave them both such a fright that they were as good as could be for the next 2 weeks. Next, the invitations were taken to the General Jungle P.O. Mr. Postman Tomcat delivered his with the loud rat-tat-tat-tat. But when he arrived at the residence of Mr. Mouse, there was no knocker to be found. So when Tomcat entered, it gave Mr. Mouse such a fright that his heart was bouncing up in his long whiskers. Later, however, when Mr. Mouse had read the invitation to his family, each mouse got very excited and danced round and round the house. They all quite forgot about Tomcat and wrote and accepted the Jumbo's kind invitation that very same evening. Mr. Postman Fred Fox delivered the crocodile's invitation. The crocodile was so delighted that he opened his wide mouth for a smile. Fred Fox leapt back and cried, oh, don't do that, I'm sure to fall in. You see, I'm a nervous sort of fellow, and you're making me wish I'd never even taken this job. The rhino, the bear, the giraffe, and the rabbit all received invitations, and they said they'd come. The lion felt so proud of his invitation that his mane bristled, and he cried, oh, bring my new camera. If there's a chance of taking a snapshot, I'll be right on the spot. Meanwhile, in the kitchen at home, Mrs. Jumbo was up to her ears in suet and flour, making jam tarts and pies. From morning until bedtime, she rolled and baked and boiled while the young Jumbos played with jam and spilled it all over themselves. But Mrs. J was so scrambled, flustered, and flurried that she hadn't had time to worry about the sticky little imps. At his club, Mr. Jumbo read the paper and grumbled all the while at the cost of the picnic. But still, as you probably guessed, he'd have been very angry himself if he had not been able to be at the picnic. When the big day arrived, Mr. and Mrs. Bear said, others may do as they please. We shall all go on our bikes. And off they went, pedaling as fast as they could, so fast, in fact, that they ran into Piggy. We can't stop for trifles like you, they shouted. Just pick yourself up again. The picnic cannot begin without us. Master Rabbit, who saw the accident, thought, oh, how funny. If he had a bicycle, he decided that he would learn how to ride it just as well as the bear. At last, all the animals arrived safely at the picnic. Each said, of course, how pleasant the journey had been and how beautiful Mrs. Jumbo's hat was. Then, forgetting all the rules of polite behavior, Hippo cried, "I didn't have breakfast and I am starving!" And right away, he served himself one large piece of pie. The rhinoceros sat down under a tree with a bowl of salad and some raspberry rolls. The crocodile ate up 10 sandwiches at once. Piggy forgot his manners and licked the dish. But there was such a patter and a chatter and clatter that nobody saw him, and so it didn't matter. Later, someone out on the lake for a row or a sail. The hippo pushed his boat along with the pole. Soon he became worried and said, "I hope there won't be a storm." The lion laughed. "No cause for concern. The lake's calm enough," he said. "I cannot even feel a puff of wind." When the giraffe got in the water, the fish shook with laughter. And he probably guessed that made Giraffe turn red in the face. In his canoe, the frog felt quite safe and said to everyone, "I can swim. Can you?" When all of them were once again on dry land, they counted themselves to see that no one was drowned. While the grown-ups were boating, the youngsters were also having great fun. Skipping rope and playing ball, Master Bear swung to and fro and then gave Master Jumbo a turn. The kangaroo jumped so high in the air that he frightened the fox, who jumped quite high too. The tigers had a wrestling match and became most unruly. The monkeys were up to their usual mischief until the giraffe came up to them and said, "Calm down at once." And amongst themselves, the youngsters made so much hubbub and noise. It was just like a big playground out in the woods. When evening came, they hung lanterns on the trees and danced on the green in Moon Silver's light. The kangaroo was so good that they christened him Kangi the Prancer. The bear and the rhino did the polka, and everyone said, "Moonlight dancing is really fun!" The monkeys even performed a quadrille. Then it was time to go home, and after all the animals had left, Mr. Jumbo began to complain again about how much the event had cost. But his wife only smiled and said, as you probably guessed, "Well, you would have a picnic, so now you must pay for it." I hope you enjoyed going on that picnic with me. Now let's sing our song about elephants.
The elephant is big and strong. His ears are broad, his trunk is long. His eyes, they are so very small. He's scarcely any eyes at all. His tail is very short